Hey everyone, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. Today it is Monday, the 10th of October, 2022. And on today's show, is the Big 12 one of the three best conferences in America right now? Where would we rank all of the conferences in the Power Five now that we are basically halfway through the season? All that and more coming up on today's show.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Once again, Josh Neighbors here, Locked On Big 12 podcast. It is the 10th of October, 2022. Thank you all making us a part of your day. Make sure you all subscribe. Really want to get this subscriber count up. We're trying to push to 2,300 right now. Every single subscription really does count. So if you guys want Big 12 content all the time, we are the place to get it. Make sure you guys follow us on Twitter. You can see it in the scroller below if you're watching on YouTube at LO Big 12, and you guys can find me at Josh Neighbors _. I am still in Kansas City. We'll be here for, you guys will probably see me in this backdrop for 2 more shows. And then I'll be back in Virginia, back with normal set and everything right now, but still in Kansas City right now. So that's why the setup is not like it normally is. Today's show, really thinking about like kind of what was a fun retrospective thing to do or kind of big picture thing to do at this point in time. We're really approaching the halfway mark. You know, we are now at week 7. So a lot of teams are playing their 6th or 7th game, right? Depending on where your buys stack up. And we can, I'm going to check this out right now to give you all an idea here in the Big 12 of where we're at with that. This weekend, you've got Baylor playing their 6th game, West Virginia's playing their 6th game, Kansas playing game number 7, Oklahoma game number 7, Iowa State number 7, Texas number 7, Oklahoma State number 6, and TCU number 6, right? So a variety, but a lot of teams right now, basically the big point here is we are halfway home or nearing at least halfway home on the college football season, which is a really crazy thing to think about. But where is the Big 12 at this halfway point? I want you all know, like, we're looking at the Big 12 this season. I know a lot of times that we do a lot of stuff that focuses on the future of the Big 12, talk about Oklahoma and Texas, talk about conference expansion. Like, we're going to evaluate all the conferences in the Power 5 today, but we're going to do it as they're currently constituted, right? We're not going to act like Oklahoma and Texas are part of the SEC. We're not going to act like USC and UCLA are part of the part of the Big 10. We're going to evaluate the conferences for what they are right now at this point in the season. So that brings us to the top 25 right here. You all can see Georgia and Ohio State up there at number 1 alongside Alabama at number 3. There has been some jockeying. If I had a vote in the AP poll, I would put Ohio State at number 1 for the way that they have been playing recently. I think they've been really impressive. Nobody's really tested them. And the games haven't been that hard, but they've made it look pretty easy. Between those 3, that's where I would go. Clemson at number 4. While they might not have been great at certain times this year, their resume has been fantastic this season with wins against NC State and Wake Forest. Those are 2 really good wins. 2 of the, I think I saw somewhere today, they're 2 of the 3 wins against like top, whatever it is, top 10 or 15 opponents, whatever it is this season. They own a few of those, right? I mean, I think there's a few that you can think of. Utah getting dropped a couple times is in there, but really for the most part, doing a lot of the beating up there in the top 10 or top 20 rather. Clemson's been doing a lot of the work on that front. Michigan at 5, Tennessee at 6, USC at 7, Oklahoma State is at number 8, Ole Miss at 9, Penn State is at 10, UCLA is at number 11, Oregon 12, TCU is 13, Wake Forest 14, NC State is 15. Mississippi State is 16. Kansas State, they're being cut off by the ticker, is number 17. Syracuse, number 18. Good for them. 19 is Kansas. Utah is at 20. Cincinnati is at 21. 22 is Texas. 20 tied at number 22 is Kentucky. They share the votes at that point. 24 is Illinois, and the JMU Dukes in a season in their first FBS season. They're not bowl eligible, but they are 5-0 right now in their league. So if you count them up, I made this graphic for you all so you all can see it now. The number of teams in the AP top 25 per league, and I'm going to take away the banner here at the bottom so you guys can see it. Last one. The SEC has 6. The Big 12 has 5. The Big 10 has 4. The ACC has 4. And the Pac-12 has 4. These teams are all in a variety of places, but really, when you look at how many teams are in there, let's obviously focus on the Big 12. 5 teams, guys, that is half the league. That is half of the league. And really, there's like no argument against any of the teams being here, right? Oklahoma State, no argument. TCU, no argument at this point with what Kansas State has shown, right? The one Tulane lost, but there's no way you could drop them. Only 3 people dropped Kansas from their top 25 this week. And I think after seeing what what Texas has done in their last couple games, West Virginia is not a great team, but they took care of business in that game. Up was it 28-0, and then they hammered Oklahoma, who's not very good, but still they looked really impressive doing that against OU. That's gotten them now to number 22, and I mean, I think they definitely deserve to be there. North Carolina, I know Baylor is there pushing to receive votes right now, but really it's these teams are all solidly in there. And then think about the teams that are not in right now in the league. You're thinking about, teams like a Texas Tech, who is just giving everybody a ridiculously tough run for your money. I mean, absolutely, it's so challenging to beat that team. Baylor up there receiving votes, but not in the top 25 right now. And in my opinion, they should not be in the top 25 right now. But you think about all the competitive teams in this league. I mean, yeah, sure, the bottom, West Virginia, Iowa State, and Oklahoma, but really there are 7, in my opinion, very strong teams right now. And I tossed Iowa State into that group. And let's be honest about it, their offense sucks, but their defense, oh boy, their defense has been phenomenal so far this season. You cannot discount how good John Heacock's group has been. It's one of the best defenses in the conference. I'm not sure where they stand numerically in the country, but I mean, it's one of the best defenses. It's been the best defense so far, statistically, it feels like, in this league. And so you have to, count them as at least like a team that's got a great side of the ball. And a lot of that conversation, we've mentioned about like where the Big 12 is in relation to everybody else. There's not a lot of weakness. And I'm about to rank these conferences one after another in the Power 5. But the one thing the Big 12 has is that there is not an easy game, right? Nobody's going to be shocked if Baylor loses on the road to West Virginia, because we've seen West Virginia, once again, they hammer Virginia Tech, who's not very good. They should have beaten Pitt if it wasn't for the Bryce Ford-Wheaton drop. I mean, Pitt's not a bad team, but a team that could easily win the NFC East, could easily win the ACC Coastal, right? And so it's not a team that's a pushover because they got JT Daniels, Bryce Ford-Wheaton. Obviously, it sucks to see CJ Donaldson go out, Dante Stills. It's not one of those barren rosters like a Colorado, right? Like a Virginia Tech, who has been really, really down this season. At UVA, you put these teams in the Coastal, how would they do this year? You put these teams in other leagues, how would they do this year? That's what we're going to do. So let's get after this thing. Let's rank these leagues, the Power 5 leagues, and see where I think the Big 12 stands in relation to everybody else. Let us know where you guys think the Big 12 stands. Let us know in the comment section below. Before we get to these rankings, let you guys know today's show is brought to you by Upside, the best place to save money at the pump, at your favorite store, whatever it is. Download the free Upside app today. Use the promo code LOCKED, LOCKED, and you guys will get $10 off your first purchase. Go to Upside, download the app once again, or go on their website, use that promo code LOCKED. All right, number 1, SEC. Come on now. I mean, this league has been dominant, obviously, for a while. But you look where their ranked teams are. Georgia deserves to be up there. Yeah, obviously. Alabama, right? Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee, there's a conversation about, hey, are they the 3rd best team in the league? That's gone by the wayside. The conversation is, are they 1 or 2, or are they in that top tier? Or can they fight to be 2 or 1? And they'll get chances against both Alabama and Georgia this season. They've got Alabama this week, but Tennessee is an awesome team, and I'm not even sure I gave them the proper respect. Ole Miss is at 6-0. I mean, they had to win against Kentucky. I don't think Kentucky's that good of a team, but they've beaten Troy, Central Arkansas, at Georgia Tech. They beat Tulsa by 8. They beat Kentucky by 3. And then they end up beating Vanderbilt by 24, which is nice. So, with resume-wise, it's not great, but they've taken care of some business. So, sure, put them up there in the top 10. Also in the rankings, Mississippi State. I mean, I was working the other day with Barrett Sallee and Tom Luganbill, and they thought Mississippi State might be that 4th best team in the SEC. Even though Ole Miss is higher, we'll see, obviously, these two teams meet in the Egg Bowl. But Mississippi State's racked up wins against they beat Memphis, Arizona by 22, so easily handled that game. They lost the game to LSU in a game that I thought they really should have won. They felt like they were in control for a lot of that game. They got away from them late. They beat A&M by 18. They beat Arkansas by 23. They've got on the road against Kentucky this week. We'll see if Will Levis even plays, and that's why Kentucky didn't get dropped. They had no Will Levis last week. And that also gets something I'm going to hit on with the Big 12 when we get there, the quarterback depth, because we're seeing in some places quarterback depth is not excellent. But Mississippi State, they've got a really difficult schedule the rest of the way. At Kentucky, at Alabama, Auburn, they should be able to win that one. Georgia comes to them, and they're on the road in the Egg Bowl. So not sure that record's going to end up being the prettiest thing ever, but their resume is pretty strong already as it is and has a chance to get much stronger. They're a really good football team. And you look at the rest of the way for the SEC in this top 25. I mentioned Kentucky is there too. So they've got teams littered all over the place. And most of all, they've got 4 teams in the top 10. They've got 2 of the 3 top 3, and they've got 3 of the best 6, right? I mean, you're talking about, once again, like this is a league that has got Ole Miss, Tennessee, Alabama, and Georgia in the top 10, Mississippi State at 16, and then you've got the Kentucky at number 22. There's really not a whole lot of argument here about this. The next one is the Big 10. They've got 3 top teams that I think are really, really good. I think Ohio State, in my opinion, right now, should be number 1, but once again, it's interchangeable. And the way they've looked, I mean, their offense is it doesn't matter who's out for them. They've had, I think Mayan Williams was out, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba was out, and they were still able to steamroll teams. They've been fantastic. Michigan, you kind of think about the resume like Colorado State, Hawaii, and UConn. That's a horrific non-conference. They beat Maryland by 7. They beat Iowa in control by 13. They were kind of slow against Indiana. But they're still winning these games, right? They're still getting the job done in these contests. You're not overly concerned about where they are. They've got the challenge this week, right? Penn State and maybe even Illinois to some extent, but Penn State and Ohio State are the 2 big measuring sticks for them. The one key is for Michigan, they've done a good job of creating distance late in some of these games, but they're maybe letting teams hang around for too long. And you're maybe worried, hey, does their defense give something up in the end of one of these games? Allows to get tied and allows them to lose the game. But they've been up there the entire season. Then you put Penn State at number 10, who's 5-0, and I think a really good football team. They get that win at Purdue, who I still think is pretty decent. They get that 41-12 win against Auburn, who's not very good, but that's when JT Finley was still there, or JP Finley, excuse me, was still there. And then also you have the win against Northwestern early. TJ Finley was still there. 17-7 win against Northwestern was pretty dicey, right? It was, not great. But now they've got, the Michigan game. We're going to see how good this Penn State team is. But Sean Clifford's not bad, man. And they've got some real good playmakers on the offensive side. The defenses look strong so far this season too. I actually did get a little bit of a little bit of test at times, I think, from Purdue. They moved the ball over them, but still, that was week 1 a long time ago. So you're looking at 3 teams that are really entrenched there in the top 10, and 3 teams that, look, it's Ohio State and the other 2, but I still think Michigan's really damn good, and I still think Purdue's really good. I still think Michigan's really damn good. I still think Penn State is really damn good. I would not be shocked if either of those 2 teams go 11-1. And we'll have to see what happens with 11-1 team in the Big 10 West that misses. But that's why this game is huge this week. I mean, you could maybe absorb a close loss to Ohio State and still get yourself into the playoff. Once again, the Big 10 is not a league, though. They have not done away with divisions yet. So the Big 10 West, whoever wins that awful Big 10 West, is going to be, the place that sends the team probably. And look, Illinois is that other ranked team. They've been awesome so far this year. Their 1 loss came against Indiana in a game where the referees jobbed them. It felt like they dropped them not once, but actually twice. So Illinois could easily be undefeated. Not saying it's that good of a team, but still a really strong football team. And it's not like the West is horrible. I think Purdue is decent. I think Illinois is decent. The rest of it, I'm not really so sure about. So, hey, look, there's 5 teams make a conference. No, but they're top 3. I mean, when we're talking about these rankings, it's a combination of what do you value, right? And I think here, overall complexion should be valued, sure. But if you got 3 heavy hitters, 3 bona fide top 10 teams, I mean, does anybody think those 3 teams up top in the top 10 should not be there? I don't think you can disagree with that. I mean, look at who else is outside of the top 10 right now. Penn State's at 10, but I think I'd put them ahead of Ole Miss. If Penn State played Oklahoma State on neutral field, not sure how I'd feel about that one for Oklahoma State. USC even in there too, not sure I'd feel about that for them. So, I would not put UCLA's resume is pretty decent the last couple of weeks, but I wouldn't put them all the way up there. I'm not sure I'd put Oregon over Penn State either. And you get to TCU, Wake Forest, NC State, wouldn't put them. So they're all 3 bona fide top 10 teams. Michigan's been right around that top 5 all season. They're still at they got dropped a spot and they're at number 5 now. So am I putting too much stock at the top? Sure. Yeah, I am. But they've got 3 bona fide top 10 teams at this moment in time. And that's something to boast about. At 3, I do have the Big 12, though. The depth, it's insane, right? That's what makes this league so much fun week in and week out. And one more thing, too, the quarterback depth, right? You're seeing Oklahoma and places like, that happened to them, too, in Kentucky. The main guy goes out, and there's some huge problems. We saw the other night with Alabama. Obviously, they win the game against A&M, but A&M hasn't been that good this year. The Big 12's quarterback depth is phenomenal. I mean, we've got backup quarterbacks putting on shows in Max Duggan right now, right? I know Donovan Smith gets benched, but he and Baron Morton have both been excellent at times. I mean, they have Donovan Smith in there, and they beat Houston. I know it's not a great Houston team, but still, it's a really tough game at that point of the season. They beat them. They're in the game against NC State. They don't win it, but they're in that game against NC State. They beat Texas Donovan Smith. I mean, they gave Oklahoma State one hell of a run for their money in there with Baron Morton, their 3rd-string quarterback, right? Max Duggan, we're talking about him at TCU, how good he's been. The way Hudson Card stepped in and looked really good at times and kept him in the Alabama game and didn't lose a thing for him. The way, he did it, especially in that game that he had, the West Virginia game was insane. And then Jason Bean comes in for Kansas, and oh my God, how about that performance from him? So this league's got a bunch of teams that are having to go to their 2nd-string quarterback, and those guys have delivered. We have 4 Big 12 teams right now that have gone to their 2nd-string quarterback: Oklahoma, Texas Tech, TCU, and Kansas. And look, I know Jason Bean hasn't played very much this season, but the results, oh my God, in that kind of a spot, in that kind of a game, for him to put them in there, save that one awful interception, phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal stuff from him. And from that entire game was phenomenal. But yeah, I think that's where the quarterback depth is crazy, and that just kind of makes this league stronger. And then also kind of, my point about the ACC that we talked about. I've got them, we'll see them in a second here, but the reason, they're not up in number 3 is they've got a Clemson, they got an NC State who's pretty good, they got a Wake Forest who I think is really good, but they're not as good as those schools up at the very, very top right now, and the Big 12's got more depth than the ACC does. Outside of State, Wake, and Clemson, FSU's good. I think they're a good team, but we saw them last week. Obviously, a disappointing loss. In their game to NC State, who beat them out. Wake Forest beat them out. We had a close call earlier in the year, big win against Louisville, but we're not really sure Louisville's all that good either. And you look at that Coastal. The Coastal is rough, so that's why they can't be up here. But I think the Big 12, because of that depth, because they have 5 teams that deserve to be ranked 110%. That just shows you what voters believe in them. And also, once again, there aren't any bad teams. West Virginia is not a bad football team, right? They might be Big 12 bad. Oklahoma, let's be fair about them. They could be bad, but they beat Nebraska on the road by, 1,000,000 points. And Nebraska, I know they're surging that bad Big 10 West, but we saw what they're capable of. It's not like Oklahoma is a team devout of any talent at all. I mean, Vegas has them as a 7.5-point favorite this week against a Kansas team that we all agree should be ranked. Only 3 AP voters had them out, and I'm talking about rankings as we consider these teams top 25 caliber teams. So even with Oklahoma, if you put them last in the league right now, that's where I would put them right now. It's not like they don't have any talent. Now, without Dylan Gabriel, sure, they're going to be pretty lost, but it's not like they don't have a coaching staff. And I would be shocked if this thing doesn't turn around in some semblance, some way, shape, or form at some point in this year. The 3-3, kind of a new season, new mindset for them. Want to see how they come out. But besides Oklahoma, man, like, and also you put Oklahoma up against all those teams in the ACC Coastal. I mean, like, they probably win a lot of those games. They'll probably be favored in a lot of those games. Not sure if they win them right now, but at first 3 weeks of the season, they probably win some of those games. So that's kind of where I'm at on that front with the Big 12. I mean, Oklahoma is their weakest team right now. And that tells you something. That really does tell you something. Texas Tech's going to be a team that ends up probably like 6-6. It's going to have a hit list of really good, strong teams. They already picked up 2 top 25 wins. They might end up, being 6-6 with like 4 or 5 top 25 wins. That's how good this league is. It's how deep this league is. At the top, I've said it, guys, I'm not sure how good Oklahoma State is. That defense can give it up. They know their identity, which is really, really important. And they're really well coached. Fair catch against Texas Tech proves how well coached they are. When you think about a team like a TCU, right? Defense not all the way there, but they're pretty aware their defense is not great. Their defense can make some plays, but they've got a quarterback who is on fire right now in this league, and Max Duggan, who's playing some of the best football any quarterback across the country right now. And they've got playmakers all over the place. Tay Barber, Darius Davis, Mari DiMercato, Kendra Miller, Max Duggan himself, and then obviously Quentin Johnston. It's a team and we saw him push Kansas around for a little bit of that game, physically at one point too. Think about Kansas State, like that Farmageddon win was not pretty, but they've got an awesome defense, and they've got, maybe the best running backfield in the entire country in Adrian Martinez and in Deuce Vaughn together. It's just absolutely crazy how good those guys are. And then Kansas is right there in all of this too. Don't forget to mention them. And Texas to me is a huge threat for the Big 12 championship because of how good that defense looked at certain times. And also Quinn Ewers makes that offense dynamic with guys like Xavier Worthy, Jatavian Sanders. The offensive line played last week was pretty impressive too for having a couple young guys trying to hold it down. So Big 12 to me, it's not quite the Big 10. It's a little bit, the top 5. And if you play the top 5 in the Big 12 against top 5 in the Big 10, I think the Big 10 probably goes 3-2, but it's Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State probably getting the wins, right? I mean, it's pretty close. And then, I would take the 4 and 5 in the Big 12, and that can be whatever you guys want to make it to be, right? If you just go with whatever the standings say, like I will take, I'll just go with the back 3 teams ranked. I would take Texas, I would take Kansas State, and I would take Kansas over, whatever that, the back 2 rather. I would take the back 2, whoever you want it to be, over Illinois and whoever that 5th best team is in the Big 10, right? Is it a Purdue? Is it a Minnesota, right? Is it Wisconsin? Like I would take a lot of what the Big 12 has in the back end. And then look, Penn State versus Kansas State would be a fun, interesting game, right? With the style matchup. So I think the Big 10 would probably go 3-2, but top 5 for top 5, the Big 12, it's not like they're uncompetitive with those teams. And I think even some of the back might give some of those SEC teams some trouble. So I have them at 3. At number 4, the Pac-12, they're racking up some good ranked teams. Here it is. USC is a good football team. UCLA is a good football team. Oregon has really turned the corner, getting themselves to their number 12 in the country right now. It's like a much different team than they were before. And then you go to the bottom part. I know Utah still hangs on to that number 20 ranking. I'm not really sure they should. The problem for the Pac-12, and look, I think this is a very strong Pac-12 this year. I think it really is. I think Washington State is a good football team this season. Besides I think Cal can be good at certain times. I think Oregon State's a little bit disappointing to me. Washington got off to a good start, but they kind of slowed down a bit now. So I think there is some depth in this Pac-12, maybe better than last year. I'm not sure, but the top for them is why I put them at number 4. USC, UCLA, and Oregon, as well as Utah, are 4 very strong teams that we think this season. And I like all 4 of those teams, and that's why I'm putting them over the ACC. Really, I'll just go to the ACC 5th now, just to put this up there. The ACC Coastal drags you down. I'll just give you guys a list of those teams. And look, the reason why Pac-12 is 4th, and they might have some more heavy hitters than the Big 12 does. Let's finish up on this real fast. Stanford's 0-4 in the league. They're 1-4 overall. Colorado's 0-5 overall and 0-2 in the league. Arizona, while they're an improving Arizona team, probably not very good. Washington turns out to be somewhat fraudulent from what we saw early on in the season. Oregon State not succeeding well they should. Arizona State is a complete dumpster fire at 2-4. right? Their middle class in the league is not very good. Like, what's your middle class? Oregon State, all right, that's fine. Washington, fine. It really, they've kind of lost some shine after that pounding they took against. Well, UCLA tried to give that game away, but still, they end up losing to Arizona State, who's not very good, right? Washington State's kind of the one team in that middle class that I like the most. They have the weird loss to Oregon, and I thought they were competitive at times with USC. They had a great win against Cal. And then that win against Wisconsin on the road early on in the season. So I think I would put them probably as that fifth best team in the league. Once again, Cal's defense can be good at times, but they're not bringing the depth, and their back end is horrible. I mean, Colorado, Arizona State, and Stanford are three really bad football programs right now or teams, I should say right now, programs overall, but teams in a bad spot right now. The ACC at 5, that's what I'm talking about with a certain division just dragging you down. Sure, you had Clemson. I think NC State's a very good football team as well. I think Syracuse has been exciting this year. I think Wake is very good. The 4 ranked teams there. I think FSU is interesting. Boston College is not good. Louisville is just really weird. They're kind of a one-man show. North Carolina's 5-1 and did not look great against Miami. Georgia Tech is 2-1. They're in second place in the Coastal. Duke is 4-2. They've been a nice, fun, pleasant surprise. We saw Kansas, handle them at home. Pitt's 4-2. They lost to Georgia Tech at home. I mean, that's about as bad as it gets for, a team like Pitt. Virginia Tech 2-4. They are not very good at all. Miami is 2-3. They are not very good at all. UVA has been a disaster. 2-4, 0-3 in the conference. They are not even close to what they have been before. So they basically have an entire division. I know North Carolina is getting votes to be ranked, but that North Carolina defense gave up 61 points against App. They gave up 45 points against a Notre Dame offense that was stagnant. They won, they had a nice performance against Virginia Tech, 41-10. They're not very good. They have the close win against Miami, and so you have stuff like that happen all the time. But, the Coastal maybe has one good team. I think that's pretty safe to say. If you have one division in your conference that has one good team, I really can't respect that. Like, I really cannot respect that league at all. I mean, at least there is some balance in the North and the South and the Pac-12. I know they're going to have the best 2 teams meet in the conference championship game, but and Clemson's gotten the wins over Wake Forest and North Carolina. So NC State. So they're in that driver's seat, man. They're in that driver's seat for the ACC Atlantic. Who in the hell is going to give them a challenge, right? Who is going to give them a challenge from the ACC Coastal? It ain't going to be Carolina because that defense has been awful. That should be a pretty maybe fun offensive game. It's not going to be Pitt, in my opinion. It ain't going to be Georgia Tech, even though they're 2-1, right? I don't think it's going to be Duke. So not saying those teams are complete crap and will be complete crap all season, but you can't look at that ACC and tell me, they've got, over half the league stinks. Really stinks. I know there's a bottom to the Pac-12. The ACC bottom, if you just line them up all together, Virginia's bad, Miami is bad, Virginia Tech is bad. Georgia Tech's 3-3, guys. Good on them. Georgia Tech is bad. Georgia Tech is bad. I know they beat Duke 23-20, but Georgia Tech is not a good football team if you watch them play at all. Boston College is bad, right? Louisville is. I'll give them the title of mid. Look at the top part of that ACC Atlantic, man. 6-0, 5-0, 4-2 FSU, 5-0 NC State, and 5-1 Wake Forest. That's good. That's good. You have 5 solid teams there. The rest of the league stinks. It really stinks. And it's not like their top part is anywhere near how good that Big Ten is. So I think just the ACC as a whole, you can't put that league as a whole ahead of the Big 12 as a whole. Maybe you could argue they could be ahead of the Pac-12, but USC and UCLA look really strong. And maybe make the argument here, but if I'm stacking up the Pac-12 against the ACC, the bottom of the ACC, in my opinion, is much bigger than the bottom of the Pac-12. And that's why I would put the ACC behind the Pac-12. And that's why those schools, those conferences won't eclipse the Big 12. So look, they've got a team, each of these leagues, Clemson and then USC, who are ahead in the rankings of the highest ranked Big 12 team, that is Oklahoma State. But once you start going to the kind of the next tier, the secondary tier, and the next level, are these leagues much better than the teams at the top, right? TCU and UCLA, people might say, oh, UCLA probably pretty good. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but TCU's right up there as well, right? Oh, Utah probably really good. Yeah, but Kansas State there as well. You know, we saw Utah lose twice now to a pretty bad Florida team. I know it was week 1, pretty mid Florida team. And also they got kind of run there towards the end against UCLA, right? So what am I supposed to do with that? And Kansas obviously has made a great accounting of themselves. So I think the overall depth of the Big 12, you put the Big 12's top 10 teams against the Pac-12's top 10 teams, I think the Big 12 will win more of those games than the Pac-12 would. If you put the top 10 teams in the Big 12 against the top 10 teams of the ACC, I think I like the chances of the Big 12 as well to win a lot of those games. I mean, you favor, once you get past Clemson beating Oklahoma State, like, all right, you put NC State against TCU, right? How does that one go? You put Kansas State going up against Wake Forest. That would be a really weird contrast of styles. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch that game happen. Those corners from Kansas State going up against wide receivers from Wake Forest will be a lot of fun. But I think you like Kansas State's chances, maybe doing neutral field type things in these games. If you'd stack up, the fourth best team, trying to think who it is off the top of my head in the ACC, you would just stack. Oh yeah, Syracuse. Shout out to Syracuse. Got to give them some love. Right? You would stack up Syracuse against Kansas. That's a fun, compelling game. I would give Kansas the edge in that game. If you put Texas up against FSU, or whatever else you want to do as the 5th ranked team, you'd give probably Texas the edge. And then once you start getting to the other matchups, I mean, Carolina against, let's just say, Texas Tech, or whoever you want to put as the 5th best team, right? I'm just kind of going out of order now. But you see what I'm saying with that. Like, if you matched up these teams pound for pound, the Big 12 was better than them. I'm not going to go out here and say the Big 12 is better than the Big 10 or the SEC. Not going to do that. But if you put them pound for pound, their depth up against most of these leagues, I mean, especially towards that back end, like you'd probably maybe see some pretty lopsided scores with the Big 12 teams getting the better of some of these other conferences' back parts, just because they're not as deep. And people seem to acknowledge the depth of the Big 12 as well. All right, that will do it for today's show. One more word before we get out of here. Today's show is brought to you all by Nissan. You guys know Nissan has been great, making great vehicles for years, and they've got a new segment called the Thrilling Moments segment that goes way beyond traditional spots and dots. And make sure you guys know that Nissan is for the extraordinary. In our extraordinary play this week, how about that fair catch from Oklahoma State against Texas Tech? That's got to be the extraordinary moment. There's a lot of great plays. Sure, Tay Barber. Sure, Quentin Johnston. Sure, Darius Davis. Sure, Lawrence Arnold. Sure, all those guys, whatever. Nah, the heady play. Because you know what? Nissan, they appreciate that stuff. So once again, the thrilling moment this week is the fair catch. Thrilling designs are what Nissan brings to you. They're intended to empower drivers in vehicles as capable as the driver themselves. When I think of unbelievable abilities on the field, I think of, once again, the fair catch this week against Texas Tech. And also, I think Nissan as well. All right, folks, make sure you guys follow us on Twitter at LOBig12. You guys can find me at @JoshNeighbors_. Find the show wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as well. Till next time, my friends, as always, stay safe.